What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe here. Sorry about the air there. Too many things to do as a producer and a co-host. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I am the co-host and co-producer of the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Plus Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And as part of that collaboration last year, was part of a team that reached out to over 100,000 dads and fathers around the world. So as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Good morning, Mr. Ryan Knight. What's going on?
Good day, good day. Things are going well. Just before I jump into who I am, on LinkedIn, Charles Corprew just said to say hi to you, said it's been a minute.
Where is that? That name is familiar from somewhere. George, where
hey,
do
we gotta reconnect. Yeah, Charles Corprew.
Yes, I know who that is. Yes, I do remember. Yes, way back, because I've been doing this for a while. Him and I used to do great online conversations together, and then he started his own platform. I don't know if you're still doing Charles. It was, if I'm correct, was it What's Your Revolution? If I'm correct, and great guy, very good guy. So definitely have to get back in touch. So that means I've been around for a bit if I can remember people
Yes.
way back. So what's up, Ryan? What's going on?
Yeah, and always a pleasure to be on with you with the morning vibe. It sets the tone for my day, and I'm hoping we can do the same for our audience. For those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, also one of the, currently the co-executive director. Shout out to my counterpart, Nicola Harris.
We still have to get on the platform one of these days.
Yes, we are going to make that happen.
Why is she dodging it?
And we work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage their business is in today, and then help them create a blueprint to grow their companies exponentially. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I run a company called Detailing Nights. So we provide mobile waterless car cleaning. So we go to people's houses or their offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based, eco-friendly cleaning supplies. And shout out to the youth that are part of our entrepreneurship program this summer. Kirana, Anthony, Nashon, who is Sade is with us, Fitzroy. We're going to be getting deep into it in July. So and shout out to Frontline. So Station
Frederick,
supporting us with their hiring program. So we've been able to hire not just through ACBN, but also through Detailing Nights. And lastly, of course, I'm still rocking my Paku shirt. Oh my gosh, where's the thing? So the Pan-African Credit Union, they have their application into FISRA, which is the securing body for financial institutions. It's time for the community to rally around a Black-owned financial institution that we can support. I don't know if people have been following the show and my journey through these Black entrepreneurship loan programs.
Yeah, where is that these days? I thought I was going to see a reality show by now.
Listen, they should have a camera follow me One, as I'm responding to
No,
these
no, no, no,
emails.
no. You should have one of your students do this
Uh,
with you, man.
Well, and what's bothering me is that the experience has not been good. And as I'm hearing more stories from other entrepreneurs that are also going through Face Coalition, RBC, CIBC, Bank of Montreal, they all have Black entrepreneur programs, and it's not overwhelmingly positive. And I would say my personal experience has not been positive. I would say it's been truly negative. So as I'm putting together my report, stay tuned because
You need to
so
document
far,
that, man. You need to, even if look, you've got one of these. You
true,
should,
yeah. Hey,
you should
I'm down.
seriously. You should
I'm
be
down.
like, you should be documenting all this, all the highs and the lows of your journey, because
Yeah,
documentation is is important. Like, you've been doing this thing with me for like over a year now. You should know documentation is important. Plus, as a business
yes.
owner, you know documentation is important, and plus your journey is part of your business.
And remember this, I started my application into these programs before we started our show. So over a year,
Wow.
it's been a process of trying to get loans through these Black entrepreneurship programs. And take note, RBC announced a $100 million program June 6, 2020. Just to keep that in the back of your mind as I'm working on this report.
You know would be, and and this comes into our friend that we're having on today, and we'll get her on in a few moments. The pledge,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
think that should become one of our words to use now. How's things with the pledge?
Right. Yes.
And I'm dating myself a little bit. Pledge used to be a furniture spray,
Oh yeah.
right? Remember pledge?
Pine. Yeah, man.
So is the pledge is the pledge actually to make things better, or is it just to shine?
Well, is Pledge still around? Because wasn't it?
Hey,
I
don't
don't even
matter.
know if that exists anymore.
I think we should always talk about how's the pledge.
Yes.
How's the pledge?
Well, a report was done in the US. We need to do a report in Canada about all these companies that did these pledges, uh, allocated money, and it's to be seen. Like, we have to know, like, where did this money go, if it went anywhere at all.
Well, you know what's going. Well, I can already hear that. Well, they didn't qualify, they didn't meet the requirements, etc. But then the next question is, what are you putting? And they have probably put some things through organizations like yourself to put things in place. But the thing is, will that money still be there?
True. Yeah.
Right? Will that money still be there? Before we get into things, we got to do roll call. We got people here already. Good morning, Harris Marketing. Yes. LinkedIn user, yes. Ted, it's been a minute. Yes, he has been I'm humbled to you to say that. He was a catalyst for the work I've been doing for the last couple of years. I'm grateful to him. I am grateful to you back, Charles, because you're part of my story. So thank you so much. Good morning, Tim Frey. Wonderful. Tim says, yes, I have a full-length experience with the Black Entrepreneurship loan. Is it a good experience or not so good experience? Actually, what we need to do then one day? We need to have maybe it's a series of roundtables with people, their experience of the process, because you have
reading my mind. You're reading my mind,
right?
Like a mini focus group.
Well, but an ongoing, like maybe once a month, bring someone up who has had an experience, whether it's good or not good. Because I know one or two people that have had a good experience with it.
We should, a couple that got it and a couple that are struggling to get that full experience.
The full experience. So we got good morning, Daras. I hope I said that name. If I got it wrong, it's my head, not your heart. My heart. IPD TV addict. Has any money gone into your account yet? Have any of those given you your money? Well, from what Ryan's saying, no.
It's been over a year.
And fellow media platform GBKM. Good morning, guys. Good morning, GBKM Network. Hope you're doing all right. But it's a little cray out there. That's why I've always told people, and Ryan knows this from a long time, I go after sponsorships. I don't go after loans and grants. Right? And one of the reasons I go after sponsorships, aka the Dove Men Plus Care, you don't have to pay them back. Yes, you have to meet performance matrix, yes, but you don't have to pay them back.
and it's more of a partnership. They
Yes,
are
it's like yes,
invested
they're
into
vested. Yes, they
what
have a
you're doing.
vested interest
Yeah,
on wanting you to see because you're collaborating them to promote their brand, product, or service, and
exactly.
but people just go, oh yeah, but there in the brand world, sponsorship world, there is a lot of money out there.
100%.
There is a lot of money out there, but yeah. So note that down, Mr. Ryan. There, we should maybe have a rolling series of different people's experiences with a black. I don't know if
That
they may step on some people's toes, but we just want the truth, and have that go down. And I guess we have some things coming up starting in July. We're not going to announce it yet, but we're going to have a new series starting, a monthly series starting. Won't get into it, but all I'll say, it has to do with money. I think I got people's attention. Has to do with money.
yes.
So we've been able to we're going to be starting a series on money once a month next month. We'll get into too much of it, but we'll maybe get some more details on Monday's conversation because yeah, we're going to start
So July
promoting
is
it.
next week. Like,
Yeah,
July is next
yeah,
week.
yeah. Like it's just gone. And another thing, just an FYI for people, our last show for this month is on Monday, but that'll be our last show until July 8th, because on July 1st, it's a national holiday in Canada. And then on the 4th, I'm going to be on a little mini vacation or mini getaway. So we'll be doing replays on July 1st and July 4th. And then on July 8th, that's when we're going to be, is the first episode of our new monthly series. So just an FYI, at a time we'll make sure we mention again on Monday. But yeah, so July 1st and July 4th will be replays. And absolutely, but yeah, July is like boom, it's here, it's coming.
It's wild.
It's wild. So before we, you know, well, we have a new friend who is a morning person who's going to be joining us in just
Right.
a second. They're giggling I can see they're giggling in the green room. But let's do a little mini introduction from you, Ryan. How did you meet this wonderful lady, one of our new friends?
Yes. So, of course, everyone might know I love LinkedIn. And so a post had been put out because Walmart had created Juneteenth ice cream. And I'll
Yes.
leave that with everyone to guess what flavor the ice cream was. It's not important, but that'll be a trivia question. So this post was made about it. It caused, a lot of conversation. And I was able to then, start checking the internet about this author of this post, and I noticed that she had been doing amazing work with coaching entrepreneurs, webinars, and keynotes about starting a business. And she's a super serial entrepreneur, but now she does a lot of work in diversity and inclusion and really coaching corporations to not have these types of missteps. Case in point, Vaseline has created a Black focused label for their new products. So that's where I was able to reach out to Dr. Carey Yazeed and say, you know what, I'm a fan of not only your perspective, but I would say your experience, and would love to introduce you to our audience. And she was so gracious to agree. And I don't know if you wanted to touch a little bit more on her bio, but
Yeah, let me, before we bring her up proper on stage, this is a little bit of her bio. She's a qualitative researcher, a collector of untold stories that help companies and organizations to better understand their employees. Certified in diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. That's the DEI in the workplace, with a background in mental health and academia. She's the founder of I Think Change, a boutique research company. Or sorry, a boutique research consulting agency. Let me be corrected. She is also the author of several books, including Shut 'Em Down, Black Women, Racism in Corporate America. Oh, good. We're going to like that. And also Everyday Struggle, How Toxic Workplaces Impact Black Women. Both books were Amazon bestsellers in the category of business conflict. I like that. And that's a good topic of business conflict. I love that. She's a former college professor, was awarded Professor of the Year by the College of Sciences and the Faculty That Rocks Award. I like that. And the Faculty That Rocks Award, and the
yes.
Associate of Women Students at Southern University. Core List magazine has listed her as one of the most influential Blacks in 2022. Congratulations. Need to celebrate its success. She's a native of Zana, or we call Louisiana, the home of the LSU Tigers. Another place, another great thing, a great gumbo, by the way. and a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. I have some ladies in my community that are a member of that soror. She holds a
Nice.
PhD in higher education, leadership, and research from Louisiana State University. There we go, LSU Tigers. And a member of the Master of Social Work from Tulane University, and a Bachelor of Science in the Psychology from Southern University. Man, doctor, don't you? Is all you do is work? What? What? Doctor, all you do is work? What?
So good to have you.
Thank
What?
you. Thank you for having me.
How we doing this morning?
I'm here.
Yes, we'll leave that. We'll leave that. Well, look, we want to thank you for
Yes.
taking time out of your positive productive schedule to share with us this morning. And well, first of all, congratulations on all the successes. And I'm sure there's some you didn't put down there in your bio, but congratulations, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. Now we got the big shiny bio. Let's find out a little about you. Obviously, you grew up in. I'm gonna make an assumption. Did you grow up in Zana?
Yes, I
All
am.
right.
I was born and raised in Louisiana.
Mm.
Good, good. And what was younger Dr. Carey all about?
I would have to say she was quiet. I'm really an introvert, so don't speak unless I really have to, but then is when I do speak, I normally realize that I have this impact. But growing
Mhm.
up, I was very quiet, big reader, so you could always find me in the library with my nose in a book. And I'm the oldest of two kids. My parents were I guess you could say blue collar workers. My dad was a chef, and he was actually a well known chef out in this area. And my mom was a store manager. So I think to have a daughter who has a PhD, even though my mom didn't live to see it, my dad did. And my younger brother, he's an engineer, an electrical engineer. So proud of my roots, inner city kid. And it's just like here I am, and this is the work that I'm doing.
Um,
Nice.
Definitely education is very foundational in your family tree. Now,
Yes.
with parents that weren't, and I say this respectfully, educated, how did they instill education into you and your fellow sibling?
Actually, my mom did have some college, so she just didn't finish and complete her degree. I think my mom made it to like her junior year of college. So, but I think I really took after her when it comes to like, as far as like, I would say book smarts. She always had books available, and she didn't have to tell you to read. She just made it available, and she took us to the library. So there were things that were just a part of our growing up that, like, I guess you would say seeds that were planted.
Hmm.
Whereas my dad was more practical. So he wasn't well read, but when he didn't understand, he would have a verbal conversation with you. So he was a great listener, and so he could still engage in a conversation with you. And even though he wasn't well read, my dad had met people from all around the world, celebrities, because he was a well-known chef. So
Mhm.
he could really carry his own when he was in a room with them. And I think I got that from him, because at home he was an introvert. He didn't really talk, but when he said something, it was like E.F. Hutton. Everybody stopped and listened because it was just like, okay, dad is speaking.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
um,
I
but
love
they
that.
both were entrepreneurs, and that was planted in me. My brother didn't get it, but I got it very early on.
Wow. That's what an incredible household to grow up in. That just
Yes.
for about you just man, that would be a beautiful household to be a part of. And condolences on your parents, no longer being with us, but they as we would say, they're done good.
Thank you,
100%.
thank you. I think they would be proud.
Absolutely. How did how did like the entrepreneur world come into your journey? Then I'll let Ryan, because I could ask a million conversation pieces, but I just how did entrepreneurship and the love of it and helping people in it get into your journey?
Well, like I said, my dad was he was a well-known chef in the area. And so he started a catering business because even though you're well known and you're popular, doesn't mean that that's reflected in your paycheck and you having to take care and provide for your family. So we would often do like black weddings in our area. And so I would just notice that my dad was great in the kitchen, but when it came to like invoicing and getting paid and he wasn't good with that. And marketing he didn't have to do because people knew him. And so after like I think one too many times of just seeing him struggle and argue, it was in actually in high school where I took over like the marketing of our business. And then once I graduated from college actually, and I'll never forget, um it was this argument that took place at a wedding where they would get a deposit. My parents would get a deposit. And so they had this elaborate wedding. It was over the top. And so they still owed us the other half of the money. And so the mother of the bride was refusing to pay. And she started to belittle my parents, like, well, you're just caterers and, you're blue collar workers and I'll pay you when I want to.
Wow.
Not realizing that their daughter had a master's degree and my brother was about to finish in engineering, and we were working with them because this was our family business. But I realized, well, I have to pay because at that point I was taking over at that point that we had staff we had to pay because we were a catering company. So we had servers we had to pay. My dad had purchased all this food, but I was like, I'm not going to get paid if this lady doesn't.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And so it was at that point that I stepped up and was basically, I became Guido from the mafia, which is like, you owe us some money, and I'm gonna need my money, and you got till midnight. Well, you haven't figured out.
Gangsta Dr. Carey.
Hey, business takes you there.
Yeah, it takes you there because it was just like, I have to pay these people. So we're going to have to come out of our pockets to pay them. So, but you still need to reimburse us and we can't take that hit. And so I'll never forget, like my parents were just like in shock because like I said, I didn't talk a lot. So it's just like, oh, wait, like, what did you just say? And so the lady was still dealing with my mom. And I was like, no, you're not dealing with her. You're dealing with me because I handle payments. So like you need to have, and I said, I don't want a check because checks bounce. I need you to have all my money in cash.
And you got it, didn't you?
We got it at 11:55 that night. She showed up to my parents' house.
And what would have happened if she didn't show up, Dr. Carey?
We don't even have to go there.
We'll have to. I laid it out very clear what was going to happen, and it was not going to be we were going to the courts and we were going to sit in front of a lawyer, because I really needed to pay these people, and that was, and I'll never forget. After I stepped up, I remember like our servers came up to us afterwards and they were just like thank you for standing up for us because people don't normally do that. And so when I showed that form of leadership at that time, I'll never forget, like if we needed something, I could call our servers at the last minute and they would show up because they were like, she's gonna always make sure we get paid. Like she's not gonna let people talk to us like any kind of way. Like I was like, you have to respect our servers. Like just because they're in a serving capacity for your event doesn't mean that you can treat them any kind of way. And and I made sure that I paid above minimum wage. So I made it worth their while because it would usually be they would have to come out all day. That was really when entrepreneurship, like really, I think all the pieces connected. Like I said, I'd always been around it, but that was when it all began to connect of running a business, how you treat people, making sure you get paid on top of that.
Ryan, before you say, two quick things. First of all, you're coming back.
Yes.
Really and truly, you because you dropped so many knowledge bombs, and we haven't got to our main conversation topic yet, right? right? Right. You feel me? We haven't got to that yet. I want you to share with entrepreneurs out there who either are solopreneurs who will need to have staff, or the entrepreneurs that have staff. There's an old axiom out there that people say the customer is number one. Now, a gentleman who I have respect for, that I remember introducing Ryan to a long time ago, Marcus Lemonis, who had a show on a few years ago called The Prophet. He now has a show on, I think, HGTV called The Renovator, and he owns a large chain in the States called Camping World. Mm-hmm. He says the employees are number one. What are your thoughts?
I agree. How you treat your staff and how you treat the people who work for you is very important, because those are the people who have your back. Those are the people who make sure that everything gets done. So you have to make sure that you treat them accordingly. And I treat them with the utmost respect. And for me, is when I hire you, I'm not going to micromanage you, because I hired you because of your skills and your talents. Do what you do. Like make my life great, make your life great. We're all gonna win. But when I have a customer that is disrespectful to someone who works for me, I'm immediately going to step in. I don't want them to feel that. If at all possible, they're not going to feel it. And I'm going to handle the situation. If my employee was wrong, then I'll talk to them. But 9 times out of 10 is usually you just have a customer who's narcissistic, wants their way. They're used, they might be having a bad day. Well, then let me talk you down off of having your bad day. But I'm not going to let you take it out on the people who work for me, because after you're gone, they're still going to be here.
Right.
And we're family. I function as a family. Like, if you work for me, with me, you are a part of my family. And just like I would stand up for a relative, I'm going to stand up for the people who work for me.
Wow. Like masterclass. Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. Geez, we got questions and comments. Ryan, if you better come in now, because I could go on for.
Hey, you can go with but I was just curious. What was the first, I guess, solo entrepreneur endeavor that you had gone into?
Okay, so you want the first?
Yeah.
The first one was actually, I ran a summer camp at my aunt's house that used to babysit me. So I was like about 10 years old, and all the kids from the neighborhood would come to her house, right? Like, they would just gravitate to her house. So I started charging them 25 cents a day. And then the 25 cents was like, she's gonna give you a served sandwich. So like, she would give us served sandwiches, and you get something to drink, and you get to play with our toys.
So what was the split with your aunt?
Oh, she didn't know. She didn't find out that like I was charging the kids. I never forget, like my mom was terminally ill. And so she had found this book where I had actually written a contract, and she had saved the book but never showed me. So I had written a contract where the kids had to sign a contract saying they were going to give me 25 cents a day. And so this aunt was her older sister. So she showed it to her sister. So my aunt was like, she owes me some money. Like, she was charging those kids. And then my aunt was like, wait, they actually paid her. And my mom was like, yeah, like she had a whole contract. And if they didn't pay, they couldn't come back to your house.
Oh,
like,
my goodness. That
was actually my first was then.
That's
and
beautiful.
My next one was actually in high school, because again, I was a nerd. I love to read. I love to write. And I noticed that in 10th grade, a lot of the students were struggling with the reading material that we had, but also the papers. I also knew how to type, and that was a big deal back then in high school.
Hey, you know what? Just to interrupt, in grade 9, I took grade 9 typing. And I never thought that it would be so prevalent in my lifetime. I even never remember the teacher's name, Mr. Pengelly. I remember him. Tall, little, thin, non-melanated guy. Weird guy, but I tell you, taking that grade 9 typing course, hello.
Okay.
Yes,
All right. Sorry to
yes.
interrupt, Dr. Carey. Go
But that's
on.
okay. So when I saw everyone struggling, and so I think one of the things I found was unique was I could identify when people had a problem and how I could
Excuse me.
actually
Excuse me. Repeat that again, how important that is for an entrepreneur.
identifying when people have a problem. And
Thank
back
you.
then, I didn't see it that way in entrepreneurial terminology, but they all were failing English and I was passing. So I basically just put the word out like, hey, I'll read the book, I'll write your report, and you have to pay me. And so my English teacher found out what I was doing, and so she kept me after class. And so I was like, I'm about to get kicked out of this school because I was in a magnet program. And so
Yeah.
she was just like, okay, how much are you charging them? And so I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, and she's just like, look, like, I know you. She said, because you're the only person who engages in class during discussion. Everyone else is clueless, but they're all passing my class. And so I didn't say anything. And so she said, okay, so you're not going to admit it. I'm not trying to report you to the office. She said, but you need to have a price structure. So everybody can't get an A. So those who want an A need to pay you more. So based on how much they pay, that's how you need to write their paper. And that needs to be their grade. And so she was just, and I said, okay. And so then she gave me a price structure. And so she said, so I need to stop seeing all these A's because they really all have F's in my class, technically. And she said, there needs to be some variation. And that needs to be on the amount of work that you put into writing their papers. And she's like,
Oh
are you
my
typing these papers?
goodness.
And I said, yes, ma'am. She's like, yeah, no. So then she found out I was also taking their English test form. And so she's just like, oh, wait, you need to charge way more for taking the test.
Yo,
So,
that's
like, my
gold.
sophomore year of high
Wow. This
school,
is beautiful. This is
I made a killing. Like, and my English teacher, and I made it in English class, and my English teacher helped me. Like, and we never told, because she was like, if they're dumb enough to pay you, I'm going to help you get paid. Like,
Dr. Carey. Oh my God.
Yo,
Oh my.
killing it.
Oh, you know what? I guess this is a great reaction already. Red frames, strong voice, purple top, big hair, mafia moves at a wedding, introvert. Really? How so? Force of nature, perhaps?
Yes.
Wow, Dr. Carey coming strong at the weddings. Love it. That's fantastic. And I'm not joking. This is not a one and done because I don't know if we're even going to get even. No, this is not a one and done conversation.
and
Ryan,
this is usually stuff that people don't know about me. Like, people just
ah,
know what they see now.
well
But
done.
this is how I've become the person that I am. So it started early.
Well,
I love
for
it.
me, whenever, especially when I have a new friend on the platform, want to find out a bit about your story. And I'm humbled. I can only speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for Ryan the King. That when someone feels that they're in a safe and brave space to share something like that, that means the world to me. So thank
100%.
you for sharing that. That is just my level of respect for you has just gone up 10x.
Mhm.
Like personal, professional thought process, like fantastic. So thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
No, that's beautiful because that just shows you're a human being.
Yes, I'm very human. I tell people that all the time when people meet me and they're kind of fanning out, so to speak, and I just be like, yeah, I'm human. Like,
And I don't want to harp on, I guess, that story, but I'm so curious if that's shaped the way, like your entrepreneurship journey, the fact that your teacher embraced your entrepreneurial um, initiative. Like a lot of teachers would just squash it, and they actually kind of helped you shape it. I'm curious how that affected the journey afterwards.
I think with her, it that really helped me in regards to like pricing and knowing your worth. And again, the terminology wasn't there, but her saying like for the amount of work you put in, like there needs to be a price structure. Everyone
Mhm.
shouldn't be paying the same price and getting the same grade, and you're putting out all this work. Like, there should be levels to this. she said some kids just want a C. So you need to charge them a C price and do C work and move on. And
Is that teacher still alive?
actually she is not.
Oh,
But yeah, she was older back then when I was in high school, and
right,
actually she's getting ready
right,
to retire. So
right.
she but she helped me with that. She also helped me like with style. Like we would talk about different stores to shop at because she noticed that I wouldn't dress trendy and that I really would invest in like quality pieces. And
Right.
that would be our conversation too. Like, how are you affording this? And I was just like, well, what I charge the kids for the English papers. And so she was like, oh, you take your money and buy clothes. Yes, ma'am. Like clothes
Yes.
and put gas in my car. Like, because my parents were like, I couldn't work a job because I attended a magnet school, but my parents also at a certain point stopped giving me an allowance. So if I
Yeah.
wanted things, I had to be creative. And so my brother was also, again, he's not the entrepreneur. So when I was out here hustling, so to speak, I was hustling for both of us. So if he wanted something, he would tell me, and then I would make sure that he got what he needed.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'm gonna catch up with some comments. Eventually, we'll get to at least one of the things we wanted to chat about, but then the
Or we might
interruption.
be here all day. We'll just
Well,
extend
no,
it.
no, well, we're doing a part two, not one day. So, um, let me just put some comments out here. Charmaine is saying very inspirational conversation, Dr. Carey. Being able to identify when people have a problem or need is awareness, which is important for entrepreneurs. She also asks, how did you invest your money from 10 years old?
In the pink piggy bank, like, you actually have it was
Yeah,
a bank shaped like a pig, and it was
yeah.
pink. I had
Do,
one of those on my
do,
dresser.
do you still have it?
No, because
Oh,
I would crack. I didn't realize it had the little thing at the bottom that you can take it out and the money fall out. So I
You
would
just bust
upgrade
it up.
every year. So at Christmas time, at 10 years old, at Christmas time, I would crack it open and then take all of my money, and my mom would take the coins and get me dollar bills, and I would go Christmas shopping for myself and for like my family members. So that's what I
Boom.
would use like my money for at that age, is
yeah.
that
Okay.
I would save for Christmas.
Okay. Marlon
Love it.
Stevens says, good morning, everyone. Ray from the Macmillan Group, good morning, everyone. The OG academic. Love it. Maybe that's your tagline. The OG academic. Uh, Charmaine is asking, what goal did you put in place to attain your career? Good question.
Hmm.
Oh, that is a good question. Honestly, Charmaine, I would have to say, like, again, I was kind of just free falling back then, middle school, high school. When I got to actually, before I got to college, another English teacher was trying to push me to major in English. And so when I had that conversation with my mom, and I joke with people and I say, my parents were not Jamaicans, they were not Nigerians, but they strongly stated, you're not going to be a blue collar worker. You're also not going to go to college and take on this career that's not going to pay anything. So English was
Oh,
out. Like my mom was like, teacher, English teacher. Back then, teachers didn't make a lot of money. She's like, no, nobody pays for writing. Like you're going to be a psychologist or a lawyer. So they decided I was going to be a lawyer. That was what the family decided.
mm.
And I went to college, majored in political science, and absolutely hated
Same
it.
here.
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is so boring." Like,
Yes.
and I hung in there for like 2 years, and finally I changed my major, but I never told my parents that I changed my major. So they had no idea. They never looked
You
at my
are a
degree.
gangster. Even on your parents, you're a gangster. Okay.
Yeah, so I actually switched to, and people tease me. I went through the college catalog and said which major requires the least amount of math, and I landed on psychology.
Ah,
And majored in psychology, loved psychology. And so from there, did an internship, and it was at a group home. And so one of the counselors, I was like, what do you do? What degree do you have? And so she told me. And so she was like, I went to Tulane. And I said, well, where's Tulane? Like, because it was a private white school. And so
Yep.
she told me, And I said, And so she said, "You want to go there?" And I was just like, "Where they got some money?" Like, she was like, yes, they have scholarships, but you can get a loan." So she made a phone call. They called me in for an interview. I went for the interview. They had me fill out the application and I was accepted. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And
Wow.
so the program was social work and it was a 16-month program. So we went year round. And
Wow.
that was how I got into Tulane, and because I liked psychology, but it was going to take too long
Right.
as far as education to do what I wanted to do, and social work would actually have been shorter. So that's how I ended up being a social worker for 26 years, and
Wow.
the
Gotcha.
entrepreneurship kicked in after like year three, I decided to open up a private practice, and I did that for 20 years. I was one of the first blacks in my area because a lot of blacks were not passing the licensing exam. So I was one of the few in the state of Louisiana who had actually
Oh,
passed the exam, didn't realize that, and then started a private practice because the Office of Community Services, which is child protection, they had kids who needed therapy, but they didn't
oh,
have any,
wow.
the kids were black and they didn't have any black therapists in private practice. So I got pulled into the office and it was just like, I was doing a visit there one day. And the guy who was over the program was just like, "Hey, I heard you have your license." And I was like, "Yes, sir." His name
Mm.
was Joe Palmer. I'll never forget. And he said, "You have a practice?" And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Okay, here, go fill out these papers, and I'm going to give you 2 weeks to open up a practice, and I'm going to send you these kids because they need someone that's black who can
Wow.
relate." And so
Absolutely.
all of a sudden, I filled out the paperwork. I had a practice, and he started sending me clients, and
Mm.
it grew from there. And my specialty actually was working with survivors of sexual assault because the kids that he sent me were kids who had been
Oh my
sexually assaulted.
gosh.
So I
Right.
did that for like 20 years.
Doctor, I'm thinking now a 10-part conversation because I'm saying that as a respect. You have been in so many environments that
Mm.
I
Hmm.
don't know people have been in. Like Tulane University back then, like I know that
Yes,
there weren't too many
very.
melanated people in
I
your
think it was 10 of us in my class. All of us had went to HBCUs
Wow.
around the state of Louisiana. We were very close. We stayed together, like close knit. But it was real, and we were there during the time of the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas
Oh,
hearings.
well,
During that,
when you're doing a documentary, who's doing a documentary on you? No, I'm being
Yo,
like
that would be
just
amazing.
that's a whole conversation in itself. Where you were, what you were studying during that time.
and
Right.
how we were treated
Yes.
in relation to what was taking place in the country and the conversations we were having in class versus how you were treating the few blacks that you had in the program at that time, which I think really became the foundation for the DEI work that I
Okay.
do.
All right. So we nice segue. Beautiful. Love it. Love it.
Love
Love it.
it.
Okay. Like we'll put a bow on that, but a bow can be untied. We're gonna untie that bow at another time because
Mm.
like right now I'm full. Like we don't have to do anything else, but I'm full. But let's talk about actually there's so this is one of these conversations. The questions are flying.
Mm.
So you know what? Let's get a few more questions to the audience because I don't want them to be. So Harris Frank said, I was in New Orleans in 2007, just after Hurricane Katrina. I was in the French Quarter. It seemed racially fine. How is it racially for Black people in the French Quarter today?
New Orleans has always had this unique community in regards to like your blacks and your whites. And what people don't understand about the history of New Orleans, like New Orleans was one of the largest slave trade ports that
Mm.
that they had in this area. But New Orleans also had free blacks. So they had their own community during the time of slavery.
Mm.
So there you had it's very unique in how people function within New Orleans. But when it comes to like equality, there's still a great division even throughout the state of Louisiana. So when people go to the French quarters, the businesses that you're seeing, those businesses aren't black owned. 9 times out of 10, the
Right.
blacks are working there as servers.
Of course.
And it's usually generations. Right after Katrina, when everyone was forced out of the city because of the waters, the first people to come back into the city were your servers, like your people who worked in the food industry, because the tourism is what keeps New Orleans alive. And so they had to get that back up and going, which we also saw after with COVID. Like when they didn't have Mardi Gras, that put a dent in the city because it stopped tourism. They didn't have all of the different festivals that New Orleans is known for in the spring and the summer, and also Essence Festival. So there
Yes.
are a lot of big events that take place in addition to Mardi Gras that could not happen. And the people who are impacted the most are going to be your blacks, your Hispanics, um, because they are the ones who are usually working in the service industry. So it may have appeared that everything was okay, but you got to remember Katrina took place in 2005. 2007 was only 2 years later, and there are still homes in 2020 that have the markings on them from
Come on.
Katrina.
Come on.
Um,
Wow. Yes,
that
yes.
that if they found someone in the house that was alive, or if the house was empty, like people still, there's still parts of New Orleans that have not been redeveloped since Katrina took place in 2005.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's serious.
Wow.
Man.
Wow. Wow. Stephen Spencer saying, love this lady. Uh, question, Harris Marketing. Doctor, are you a firstborn? If so, do you think this also drove you to dominate your spaces?
Mm.
Yes, I am the oldest, and it's just my brother and I. So we're 5 years apart. So I always tell him that for 5 years I was the only child. Nobody thought about you. It was just me.
Right,
Um,
remind them.
so yeah, I remind him like constantly. So it's a running joke with us. But yes, and we were latchkey kids. So I always took care of him when we were kids. So we figured out how to cook together from my dad's cookbooks and what would be in the refrigerator. Because your parents are at work, you can't be like, "Hey, I'm hungry," and we did McDonald's and Burger King and Uber
No,
Eats
And
and
no.
Uber Eats, right?
like we sitting in there like, well, he was a big kid, and so he just be
Mm.
like, "Carrie, I'm hungry. What we gonna eat?" And I was just like, "Well, let's go see what's in the refrigerator." And he'd be like, "But you can't cook." And I was like, "Well, we gonna figure this out. You hungry? You gonna eat it?"
Right.
Like. So I think being responsible for him at a young age, again, seeing the struggles that my parents had as business owners and stepping up. My thing was I just don't like to see people uncomfortable. And so I don't think it's more so my dominant personality. It's just that I like to make sure that everyone is okay. And so I will do what I need to do to make sure that they are okay and they're in a good space. That can be a downfall because I usually put myself second as I put other people first.
All right.
Yeah, I can
Well,
see that.
question here, Dr. K, were you born fearless, or did it develop as you matured? Good question.
Uh,
I honestly think it matured over time. I think it was always there. I think that when you are a black woman that's born in the South, and I am in South Louisiana. So I tell people the Mississippi River is around the corner from my house, literally. I'm as
Wow.
far south as you possibly can get. That the way that we live and the way that we've learned how to navigate certain systems that are in place teaches you how to act accordingly, but it also brings out your strengths that sometimes you don't even know are there. And I think it also helps to nurture them and to groom them. So I may have been born fearless, but I don't think I figured that out until over time and going through different things and different struggles and having to navigate and come out and not having a roadmap, like actually having to figure it out.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We we're at a juncture point. This conversation can go one of two ways. We can continue on the road we're in, or we can dive into the DEI. If
But we
that
can
also,
dive into the DEI.
oh,
Like I told y'all, y'all got me up now. So
and I also want to be respectful, Ryan. I don't know because usually you have to jump
No,
in.
I'm good.
Okay,
Yes.
again, now the fun begin. All right. So the DEI space, and it's interesting. There's a question here that will come into that's asked of you that will come into. So let's talk about DEI, that the hot three-letter thing that we heard over the last few
Yes.
years. We are here on, I don't know what date is it? June. What is it?
23?
24th,
June 20.
23 or 24?
June 24th.
June 24, 9:51 Eastern Time. What is the state of the nation of diversity and inclusion by coming from Dr. Carey Yazeed?
The same that it was 2 years ago. Like I
Mm,
honestly don't see anything changing. I see a lot of fluff. I see all the pledges that companies are doing. I see companies changing their mission statements. I see more people moving into the DEI space and not understanding what DEI is. I've seen a lot of misinterpretation on both sides of the fence. I've seen people bring in critical race theory, and I'm just kind of like, y'all just like them made this a gumbo. You done threw everything in,
yes,
but
yes.
you don't understand the ingredients, and that some of these ingredients don't even go into what you're trying to accomplish. I see companies going through the motions of saying we know we have an issue, we know we have a problem, and then because I've had this happen to me where they will interview DEI experts, minorities, on the basis of having us to come in and do consulting work, and then for whatever reason we don't fit the box that we're trying to check, which I always say the box was that I'm black. That was the
Ah,
only that's the you didn't want me in the first place. You just went through the motions. And then eventually you bring in someone who looks like you, which is called likability and then there's also affiliation bias, where people who look like you, who have the same beliefs as you, who you're comfortable with, they're bringing those individuals in to do the DEI trainings. Well, if you're bringing someone in who looks like you, who has your same beliefs, your same ideologies, y'all went to the same Ivy League school,
mm,
then you don't see DEI the way the person who makes you feel uncomfortable sees DEI. And so, in
right.
that regard, I don't see anything being done. I see a lot of people talking. I see a lot of stuff being posted on social media, but when it comes down to actually doing the work, those who are uncomfortable, when we come into the room, their goal is we'll just get them out of the room so we can go back to being comfortable, which
Right.
means you're not going to resolve anything in the end. So when we talk about the state of DEI in America, I just see it being the same as it was 2 years ago in the summer of 2020, when we saw what took place with George Floyd, and it just sent this big spark throughout the world. I had said back then, companies are going to go along with the hype for a while. And then after a while, they're going to get tired and things are going to go back to normal.
Wow.
As
Question. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm just thinking, as unfortunate as that sounds, my mind goes to, so 2 years ago, I'm curious, what would you have wanted to see? So if we were actually able to sit down and strategize with these corporations, what what should they have been doing instead of what they did?
I think what they should have done, this is a part of what I do, is sit down and talk to your employees. I think a lot of leaders jump to conclusions, and they from their perspective, well, this is the problem and this is what needs to take place.
Mm,
No one ever sat down and asked, the individual contributor, the frontline worker, the middle manager. No
mm,
one stopped and said, what do you think? How is it going for you? Because DEI at every company is different. It's not cookie cutter. That's the other problem that I see. I also see leaders looking at it from their perspective. When we look at who run Fortune 500 companies in America, they are not minorities. They are white heterosexual men who have a degree from an Ivy League school, and they usually come from old money. And when we talk about old money in the United States, that means that their wealth is usually generational wealth that was from plantations.
right
Wow.
there. Yes.
Like
I,
that's breaking it down, and I'm
that
not
is
making people uncomfortable, but
it's
when you look
facts.
at it's facts, that's what it
Mm,
is. And so if you're asking those individuals who have, their only interaction with somebody black has been the nanny, the cook, the housekeeper, like,
Or watching LeBron on TV, or
oh
Michael on
yeah,
TV, or
or
watching
watching love,
Serena,
or
or
watching
watching,
Love and Hip Hop on TV. Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
and so that has become your interpretation of what black is, and then you're gonna say what our problems are based on
That.
those experiences that you have.
Mm,
You're gonna still be in the same boat. Nothing is going to change because you didn't even walk out of your office, take the elevator, go down to the first floor, and have a conversation with the minorities that work within your organization, if you even have minorities that work in your organization, because some
Que-
of them don't.
Question for you in
mm,
regards to this conversation topic. I hear too many times, or I see too many times, organizations hiring a DEI person
Right.
and don't
right.
give them a team.
They don't give them a team, and they also do not give them any authority. So they have no power. You have an office and you have a title. You don't have a budget. You don't implement anything. And so then, but what you don't realize is that you're the scapegoat. So when everything falls apart or the
Hmm,
public comes after them again, you have the title of DEI. And so they're going to say, oh, well, that's because our DEI person didn't do anything. And at this point, they're escorting you out the door.
wow.
And you can't even build your case of you didn't give me the resources and the tools that I needed to be effective and to do the work that needs to be done.
Mm,
What's taking place with the individuals that have these positions is that they're being silenced.
Yeah, they're not being set up for success.
They're not being set up for success when they try and speak about what they are seeing
mm,
or what they are experiencing from being the DEI,
Consultant.
executive or
Yeah,
consultant or director or
yeah.
whatever, is that they're also dealing with the microaggressions, the biases, the harassment, the discrimination. So when they even try and speak from their perspective, they are being shut down.
yep. I'm curious. I've been in, let's say, call them focus groups where companies are now having conversations around DEI, or I've been in part of focus groups where a consultant is coaching corporations. And in the room, and I joke with Dr. Vibe about this, there'll be the person that got hired as the DEI manager. And they were just told, like, oh, I was told to be in this meeting. And so they're just being directed by, oh, the company heard that they have to do this training. So they hire the person to now go there. In your work, how do you break through a person that's given no authority, no resources? What can you do with that person to actually affect change? Or is this a process we have to go through where companies fail and then we can analyze it and suggest something better? I'm curious how we approach that.
I think the thing is, if you can't affect anything in someone who doesn't have any authority. Like, they can't do anything. It's just a title. They just show up, they go to these meetings, probably taking notes. They might make suggestions, but are those suggestions being taken seriously? Usually the answer is no. Because if we look at the number of DEI positions that we have out here today
Mm,
in companies, you should see a difference. I'm a data person, I'm data driven.
mm,
So, with the number of people that you have who are DEI consultants who work in DEI positions in Fortune 500 companies, things should not still be the same as they were 2 years ago. You should see some change. So,
right.
we're still seeing that there is that blacks and Hispanics are not being paid the same as their white counterparts. Like we're seeing that women are still not being put in management position. And then when I say women, I need to be specific. It's usually black women that are not being put into management positions. And we're not talking your middle management positions. We're talking C-suite.
Mm,
And again, is people want to argue, but it's look at the data. You can see in the United States, I think we only have two black women who are in CEO positions at Fortune 500 companies. I mean, we should be seeing different results at this point if we look at it from an analytical base. And so for things to still look the same as they did 2 years ago, that means that the catalyst that you put in place, which are these DEI officers or these DEI consultants, are not effective. But why are they not effective? And they are not effective because they are not being given the power and the space and the leeway to do what needs to be done. They're there, but you silence them.
right.
Got some interesting questions here. Harris Marketing saying you are exceptional. Does that give fuel to those that say the playing field is level for all blacks in America? You made it, any black can. There is no institutional racism.
Mm,
Was see, I don't consider myself as someone who has made it. Like I don't have $1 million in my bank account, so
Yet,
I
yet,
haven't made it right,
yet,
maybe yet.
yet.
I don't consider myself as making it. And I have often heard when I went to Tulane, that was something that I heard that you all are here, the 10 blacks that are in this whole program of over like 300 students, you are here
Wow.
because you are an exception. And it made me pause because I was like, the kids I went to school with, we were all treated the same. No one was treated different in my primary school. Um, that we all had the same opportunities. And the exception becomes who are you going to select out of us to move forward?
mm,
I was selected to go so many steps, but then when I got to a certain point, society and systems stifled me. So, if you look at my career background, you'll see that I was in higher ed, you'll see that I was in social work. There were some things in place with systems that stopped the progress that I was making because I started to speak out about certain things.
mm,
Instead of me just stopping, I pivoted because that's something that growing up in an inner city community but also being highly intelligent, you learn how to pivot. Like when my
mm.
brother and I are sitting in the house and we're latchkey kids and he's saying he's hungry, you might get French toast because all we have is French toast ingredients and it's lunchtime. Like we go eat
Yes.
breakfast at lunch. We got some cereal. I'm gonna cut some strawberries up. You go eat this cereal right here, be happy. Like learning how to use what you have. And
Right.
so I don't think that I've made it. I don't think that I am an exception. I just think that I know how to navigate and pivot a lot better than other people.
All right. Another question here from Charmaine. In your journey, did you encounter bias and discrimination, and how did you deal with it?
Oh yeah, I still encounter bias and discrimination even as a consultant.
Right.
Um, and I will say even back then, when I first realized what I was going through in my career, that I would be one who would speak out. I wasn't one who would just be passive because I'm in the South and some blacks would just say, "Girl, just let that go." Like,
Mm,
don't make them good white folks mad. And I would just be like, "Man, damn that!" Like. I would be the one I'm gonna say what I gotta say. Now I done packed
yes.
my box and I know I'm getting escorted out the door. But before I leave, I'm going to tell you how I feel and how
Right.
this impacted me. And my thing is, maybe you'll listen to me so you don't do this to the next Black person that you bring in. That's always gonna be me
True.
walking out the door. But I know they're gonna escort me out the door. Like,
Another that's to say, I am so inspired. Even more hats off to you, doctor.
Mhm.
Tim says, would you say the bank's programs, Black entrepreneurship loans, are just scapegoats for showing DEI position to the world?
Hmm.
yes. I think if we take a step back and we look at the number of Blacks who actually are getting business loans, again, we haven't seen an increase in that. I've sat
Mhm.
down with Blacks who have said, like, actually, a client that I have was saying how they kept getting these emails from Chase about this program that they have for minority businesses, and he actually makes a significant amount in his business, has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, has a business account with Chase. He reached out to Chase and he said he had to go through several people because no one knew what he was talking about. When he finally got to the person who could answer his question,
Hmm.
their response was, "Oh, yeah, we haven't implemented that yet." He said, "But you're sending out emails saying that you have
Right. That this
all
is
this
live.
money and this is what's taking place."
Hmm.
So what we're seeing, again, I think a lot of it is performative. But then when you fill out the application, you don't hear anything, or they tell you you need to go and get into this program that they have. You get in the program, then you still don't get the money, and everything that they're teaching you in the program or things that you already know as an entrepreneur. They're not teaching you how to scale and grow. They're
Right.
teaching you entrepreneurship 101. But if you're coming in for funding, you're like, I got 101. I'm trying to get to the advanced level courses.
Yes. Yes.
Right,
And
right.
it's wild that that entrepreneur had that experience, and I'm hearing entrepreneurs here in Canada had that exact same experience. RBC launches $100 million commitment to the Black community. You go into the bank, and I went to 12 branches and said, "Hey, I heard that you're doing this Black loan thing. I'm curious." Crickets or deer in the headlights. Nobody knows what you're
No,
talking
no
about.
one knows what you're
And
talking
then the
about.
person that does the exact same thing, oh, but that's not launched yet, or that's not live yet. Be
Yeah.
patient. I was like, you guys are just, they're getting all the publicity and the
Right. And
PR.
so it looks good because it
Mm,
looks like we're doing
Uh,
something in regards to DEI and that we're pouring back into Black communities and Black businesses.
mm,
But and I find when people I tell people I collect the stories. I'm the story collector. And
mm.
when I collect the stories, what's taking place is that Blacks are not talking about their experience of, I went to all these banks and there is no program, or I filled out an
Right.
application and they stuck me in this program that I knew I could teach the program. I knew all the different levels. And so we're
Yes.
not having those conversations. And so we just think that, okay, well, maybe they just haven't implemented the program. Meanwhile, the big bank and the big companies are getting all this publicity, and it looks like they're doing DEI. It looks like they're pouring into communities. But when you go back and you say, "Well, show me the data. How much have you actually given to Black businesses?
Yes.
How much have you given to Black nonprofit organizations?" I'm gonna get back to you.
Yeah, right. I've heard, oh, we are actually not tracking that. I was like, but
Right? How do
what?
you not track that you
Like,
giving out money? Like,
right. Oh,
yeah.
man.
So
well, so I haven't mentioned it for a while, but it all leads to my big three:
Mm,
trauma, repetition, symbolism.
big
I
symbolism with
agree.
that one.
Right? Because and it's just funny that we have to push harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, that's a whole other conversation, but I'll bring up a comment first. That comment of being regarded as making it is something that us as Black folk have to be very cautious with. We haven't made it until we all have made it, all 40 million plus of us.
Yes, I agree. I never look at it as I have made it. When I look at my bank account and it's not, I don't see all those zeros and like and a big number in front. Like I don't just all zeros, but like it's showing I done hit the that $1 million mark. I haven't made it. I'm still out here trying to figure it out, and I'm 53 years old. I look at those around me. I'm still trying to create generational wealth for my sons and for when they start their families. It's like there's still this cycle that I feel that we're trying to break, and until the cycle is broken, again, none
Repetition,
of us have made it.
repetition, the repetition,
Absolutely.
the repetition. Let me ask, what, and I'm not gonna make an assumption. When younger people in this space come to you, what advice do you give them?
So I would say this. Usually the younger people are my two sons.
Okay.
Most of
Nice.
the women that I have worked with over the last 6 years when I doing business coaching have been women in their 40s and their 50s and some 60s that are looking to
Wow.
pivot out of their current career or to build, and like they want more at this age in life. They're like, I want more. I'm not where I thought I would be financially, and they're
Hmm.
realizing that entrepreneurship is the only way that they might get to where they're trying to be.
Hmm.
Younger people are usually like my two sons. One of my sons during COVID, he was actually making car stickers. And so the conversation was like, we talked about like marketing and how he used social media. And so shifting how he was doing that and
Hmm.
shifting his production and time management and giving him like the tools that I had, and he'd be like, Mom, this has pink all over it. All right, son, just look at the words. Like, get past the color. I'm not changing the color just for you. Like,
Yes,
and
yes.
so helping them, giving them the tools that they need, but sitting down and having those conversations with them and being open-minded that business for them might look different than it does for someone that's in their 40s and their 50s, but
Right.
starting where they are and guiding them, because the process is still the same. It doesn't matter how old you are,
Right.
it's how you look at it. And so
Hmm.
realizing that a younger generation looks at things a lot different than people my age. So starting where they
Absolutely.
are basically and telling them get past all the pink color on all my promotional stuff.
Principles are there. Just
Look
follow
at
the
the
principle.
principles and the
Yes.
foundation. Yes.
Yeah. Hayden says, why would CEOs hire people who are not like them in something perceived as a zero-sum game? Every hire that is not like them is one less job for them.
I would say that's actually a good question, but again, when we look at it's usually not the CEOs that are doing the hiring. It's usually going to be like HR, is going to be like your managers that are doing the hiring. And so we have to look at human behavior. And so when you're in an interview, they're looking who makes them feel comfortable. And so when I would go in like, with my big hair, all the attention was like focused on my hair. Well, I can't change my hair, but like, can you listen to what it is that I'm saying? But then
Mm.
what the other thing that might make them uncomfortable is that they might perceive you to be smarter than them. So I've had instances where I went in for an interview and I had a PhD. Well, then the whole interview became, well, how did you get a PhD?
You're kidding
It's a
me.
it's a
Wow.
You've
form
been
that you
asked
go and
that?
you fill out
You
and
you
you
you've been
apply.
you've been asked that in interviews?
I've been told one time I showed up for an interview and the HR lady said, I was asking her where was the room. And so she said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm here for an interview. And she said, no, you're not. And I was just like, yes, I am. And so she said,
Oh
no, we're
wow.
looking for Dr. Carey Yazeed and I said, no, it is not a he. I am a she. I am
Oh
not a
wow.
foreign man that you thought I was. I am a female. I'm a black female.
Hmm.
Where do I go for this interview? But at that point, I already knew what the tone was because I
Right.
wasn't what she was expecting, nor what she had told the interview committee. So everybody was shocked that a black woman walked in the room versus a Arabic man.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so you're starting from so many levels back. You have to like fight just to get the baseline. and then
Trauma,
just
get the job.
repetition,
It's way
symbolism.
too
Right,
much.
Trauma,
right.
Yes.
You're
repetition.
starting at a baseline. You intimidate them with your resume. Hence why some people might say, don't put all your degrees. Like I've had people tell me, don't put all your degrees on your resume. Like let them find that out once you get hired. And I'm sure everybody's figured this out by now. I'm not that person. Like you gonna get all of me, And my other thing is, I worked hard for what I
Yeah.
have and my accomplishments. I'm not going to lie on my resume just to make you feel comfortable, so
Mm.
you'll give me an interview. Because once I get in the interview, if you were gonna be uncomfortable with my resume, you really gonna be uncomfortable with me when I show up. Like
Yes.
so, like I prefer you just decide with my resume that I'm going to make you uncomfortable, that you don't want to deal with me. You save me some time, I save you some time. Like, but we
Yeah.
have to understand that this stuff is ingrained in them, that they have been conditioned to not be accepting of people who are different than them. And who do they interact with, and who have they grown up around? And again, if I didn't grow up playing with the housekeeper's kids, all I know is the housekeeper, and she's acting a certain way around me versus when she walks out the door, gets in her car, takes her hair down, pulls out a cigarette, be like, these people done got on my nerves all day, and she go home. Like,
Uh,
you getting two different people. So they go with what makes them feel comfortable.
So Dr. Carey, then that brings up a good point. The corporations would say, look, this has been going on for a lot of years. We're only 2 years in. We need more time. What do you say to those who say that?
Show me the data. Show me what you have done, and why you need more time, and what areas you need more time in. Um, because of my background of being a social worker, because again, I was a social worker for 26 years, but also being a college professor and a business owner, you work with time factors. And so you set goals, and they have action steps, and they need to be accomplished in a certain amount of time. So you should have something to be able to show me that you have made some actionable steps. So I would need to know what steps haven't you taken? Why haven't you taken them? And why do you need more time? But show
Yeah,
me what you've done thus far, because
that's a
you need to
good
build off of what you have done.
right.
I think that is very, very powerful. What we said, we have to say, show us what you've done, and basically and where do you need help, and why haven't you done it, and how much time is it going to take?
Right. And very few are able to say, this is what we have done. I have actually had one conversation with the company that they were able to say, this is what we've done. This is the problem that we have identified.
Mhm.
This is what our individual contributors are saying. Like they had done the work
The
before
work.
even bringing in a DEI consultant to say,
Mhm.
this is what we need help with. Like, this is what we're struggling with. But when I said, what have you done? They spent like a good 20 minutes outlining what they had
Nice.
done. And so I was
Nice.
very impressed
Right.
because they understood when I talked solutions, they understood because the solutions were geared towards where they were struggling. But a
Mhm.
company that has done nothing, yeah, you need more time because you're starting at zero.
Right. Just to start.
You're just starting, right?
Yes.
So here's a question from Ray. Having spent the last few years in the South Jacksonville, I've noticed the family dynamic is one that's quite different from the narrative we are constantly being sold. How important is the family, immediate, extended, and otherwise been to your journey?
I would say that my family, my upbringing was very, very important. I had a grandmother who was mixed. And so my grandmother was the only one in her family that could read because she went to private school. She was also the only one in her family who owned property. My grandmother never worked, but my grandmother always had money. And so one day I had the conversation, well, how come you have money? You don't have to go to work every day. And my grandmother said, see all that land back there with the corn and the potatoes and the okra and the mustard greens. And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, other people paid me to farm on mine. She would actually lease her property
Right.
to farmers.
Yes.
And so she said, that's how I always have money. And so she said, you have to always be able to use what you have and not depend on other people. And my grandmother had 13 kids, but you never heard her asking
Wow.
anybody for money. She always had her own.
Hmm.
And so, but also taking care of each other and being there. And so her house was like the center that we would go in the summer and for holidays. And again, it was a big family with, and that was my mom's side of the family. My dad's side of the family came from enslaved people. So they had lived on plantations. They had actually were sharecroppers. My grandparents died and didn't even own their own home. The home that they stayed in was a part of the plantation that they
Wow.
worked.
Hmm.
Wow.
But
Here's a
you
go
still
ahead.
learned about just how like you saw their struggles, but how they never gave up, how they constantly poured into you, how they made do with the little that they had. I think once we got older, I saw my family kind of disperse because people started to move out of the area. We moved out of state. And I saw a lot of the values that my grandparents had instilled in us begin to fall by the wayside because of society. So I'm honest with people when I say at this point in my life, I am no longer close to my nuclear family, but now I have two sons, and so they are my family, and so our relationship is very very close. And so I make sure that I pour into them what my grandparents poured into me, about the importance of, at least if nothing else, you two are all that you have.
Nice.
I'm I'm very curious. Would Is that a relationship you'd want to rekindle, or you
No.
can no, you kind of
Okay.
let it go? Okay.
They can stay. I'ma love them from afar.
All right. Hayden says, how important is it for us to understand that racism is quite beneficial for white people? Do we actually realize that that's a fact?
Hmm.
Yes. Hayden, I don't think a lot of people realize that if you begin to work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is going to cost some people some money. That keeping people oppressed is a part of capitalism. Because
Mm-hmm.
in order for capitalism to function, you have to
Mm-hmm.
have the haves and the have nots.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I bring you up from a have not to have something to now you here with me, then that means that I'm going to have to get down here and start to do all the work that I used to could depend on you to do because you were oppressed and you needed this job. So when we start talking about racism, we also need to talk about classism and who are the people who are are forced into doing certain types of jobs and doing certain types of labor. What do they look like? Where are their backgrounds? Where do they come from? And why is it that they never seem to move through the ranks and move up? And it goes back to what someone said about being an exception. It's because society doesn't say you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. They just pick one out the bunch and say, okay, we're gonna pick you, but the rest of
Mhm.
you gonna stay back here and continue to keep the systems going that make us profitable, that make us rich.
That's one of the
There's
things I always it's one of the things I always say. People don't realize we don't live in a democracy, we live in a capitalistic system.
Yeah, it's very capitalistic. And I think once people start to understand that, and a lot of times I see people throw around these different words of like Marxism, and it's just like in socialism, and it's just like in the United States, it's like y'all have socialism going on. We have Medicare and Medicaid. That's socialism. Like
right.
we have VA hospitals that take care of veterans. That's a part of socialism. So it's just like they try and label everything as bad, but some of the stuff that they're trying to label as bad is actually beneficial for us, for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism is only beneficial for a few.
Brian?
Sorry, I'm so curious your perspective on what you just touched on, where they select a few, I would say, of the Black community, elevate them, and then use them as the examples. Like, oh, you see, everything is fine. These people made it. How do we break through that to actually not accept that racism is gone because a few have been, I guess, elevated to success?
I think we have to stop buying into that. And we and it starts in the home. So it goes back to like the family and your nuclear family and your community. What are you pouring into the younger generation? What are you telling them? Ag- Again, when I was growing up, we were all seen as equal. Like I grew up in a time, I'm 53, we didn't have special education. So if Johnny couldn't read in first grade, Carrie had to go back there and help Johnny read, and he better know how to read by the time we getting ready to get out of first grade, or I was going to have to deal with the first grade teacher. And so we were taught how to take care of each other and bring everyone up to the same level. But then we get to a point where it's like people start to divide you, and you have to realize that the division is occurring. And I think that goes back to my personality of always wanting to give back, make sure everyone is happy, everyone is comfortable, and everyone is taken care of, because I don't see myself as an exception, but I see you as being my responsibility. That if I don't do my part, it's my fault. It's not the government's fault, it's not society's fault, it's my fault. And I think we need to get back to those principles of the community looked out for each other. We in the United States, and I can't speak to Canada, in the United States, when we had segregation, Blacks actually had flourishing communities that were
Mm,
thriving.
part two, part two, part two.
And so then we stopped segregation, and they said, it was, Brown versus Board of Education, and we're not getting an equal education, and our books don't look the same. And I had this conversation with someone the other day. I was like, when I was in elementary school, I don't even remember having books, but I remember the teachers saying, "Oh, girl, they sent us some old books again. Go put that in the storage room." And they created handouts, and we still learned and we still excel. And so their thing was, we're not going to even use this hand me down materials. We'll just create our own.
Right.
And it's interesting. This thought just popped up in my mind again, for part two or part three. From where I sit, America, certain groups in America want to go back to those days, and it may be something that's advantageous for Black Americans.
Hmm. Yeah, our Black communities have been stripped. Like I look at where I grew up, and when we moved there, white flight was taking place, but it was still a middle class neighborhood, and then it stayed that way pretty much through for me being in middle school. But then I remember when I got in high school, all of a sudden everything changed, and people still had the same jobs. Like that hadn't changed. What had changed was all of a sudden our community was flooded with crack. Like all of a sudden it's just like we had this abundance of drugs that it was just like where, and me as a kid, I'm saying, where did this come from? And how did our dynamics shift? One day we're going from manicured lawns to the next day everybody is a zombie walking around because they strung out. And watching those kids that I went to elementary school with who were the same as me getting sucked into that, and now knowing that a lot of them are deceased because they either died of health issues, they died of gun violence. And when I go back into my community, seeing people who say you made it out, and I'll say you could have made it out too.
Mm.
What happened? Why was it
Right.
just me?
Well, I think on that note, we gonna finish episode one
Yes.
of this
This is
epic
the
con.
prologue.
Well, yeah, and I said we got to DI, but it was a great journey getting to DI.
This was wholesome. My heart is full. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, we
Carey
have to
Yazeed.
there's
This is
so
amazing.
many conversation topics I'd like to have you come on and talk about. The whole area of you in the area of social work, the whole area of psychology. All these things are very relevant and are in our faces as a people every day.
Yes.
And you
They
have
are.
this, you're very many, one of the many blessings you've had, you've been able to be in a lot of different environments that we haven't been exposed to. We only get the tail end or the brunt of social psychology, business. I respectfully call you an all-rounder.
Thank you.
Because
Yes.
there's not too many environments I don't think you are not comfortable in. And if you ain't comfortable, you get yourself comfortable right quick.
Look, doing home visits, you learn how to adjust real
Yes,
quick when you
yes.
going into somebody's house you've never been in before, and you need to get them on your side, and help, and they see that you're not the enemy. It
Mm,
teaches you a lot, but it also you get to see what the news doesn't show you, and you get to hear the real stories of what's going on and why people are struggling. And I think that gives it a different perspective. And so, in closing, when people look at me, and yeah, I just got certified in DEI in last year, 2021. But I say, when you look at my entire career, it has always been about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has been being on the front lines, working with marginalized individuals, working with families that have been forgotten, going in and saying, girl, look, this all you need to do is X, Y, and Z, and showing them and breaking it down on a level they can understand. And
Yes.
20 years later, having that same family or that mom see me out in public and see how she's thriving. And she
mhm.
says, thank you for just showing me the blueprint, giving me the roadmap that no one else would do.
I love that. I
So
love
Ryan, after we finish, you got to give me this doctor's email address. 'Cause I'm gonna reach out to her. We gonna have some
100%.
chat. We
Yes.
gonna have some talking. We gonna have some talk.
So
So
good.
before you leave us, doctor, can you give our audience a call to action?
Mm,
Be present. Um, I know what they show you on the news. I know what you're hearing on social media. But my thing is be present and be aware and ask questions when you don't understand. But ask of those individuals that maybe the media is telling you to be afraid of, that they are telling you that this isn't working. Always be inquisitive and know what is taking place outside of what the media machines are feeding you, because usually when we get outside in real life, when we go outside and touch the grass and get grounded, you see that life in the real world is really different than what it is in the metaverse or what it is on social media.
So
absolutely.
absolutely. And before we let the doctor leave, we put up her website address. There is her website. So the website address is there. When you go to the website, that is what you're gonna see.
Mm,
And we are definitely gonna have you back. So want to say blessings to you on everything you have done, are doing, and will be doing. You always have a home here. And
Thank
we
you.
we look forward to I know this is probably one of the different conversations you've had.
Yes, it actually has. I've enjoyed myself, as y'all can see. Like, I'm up now.
So just a little FYI out, whoever
much
you're to the
appreciated.
end. When we doctor's not, she said at the beginning, she's not a morning person.
No
So
one will believe it.
so don't believe it.
They're
So
on point.
this is the so she came with it full, and we appreciate it and don't take it for granted. And remember to give yourself grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Take care, doctor. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye bye. All right. There we go. That was a conversation.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, like we went bonus time on that.
I loved it. Loved it. Yeah, man, that was wonderful.
Yeah. So what's going on for you this weekend, sir?
You know, taking care of some stuff on the home front, and then our our youth entrepreneurs are digging in on Sunday. So yeah, preparing
Same
for
phrase.
trying
Same
to take it
background.
easy this summer.
Good.
But yeah.
Cool. So that is fantastic. And as we always say, you can catch replays on all the different platforms. Subscribe wherever you're watching this. Please subscribe. Very important. We want this to grow. We can only do it with your support, not only eyeballs, but subscription, and also um, tell people about it. And I was humbled when I went to the event last Thursday. People say, "Yeah, we watch you. We watch you on Monday and Friday mornings." I go, "You do?" So that's very humbling
I love it. Yes.
to get that out there. So it's appreciated, not taken for granted. So Monday, coming up on Monday, we have Richard Miller of Keep Six organization that does reintegration of melanated individuals back into environment, because I don't like saying the system environment. And he's going to be giving us an update on Keep Six. Also give us an update. Their organization has now have a collaboration with Universal Music of Canada. And Keep Six actually has its own record label. So they are now collaborating with Universal Music, and they're going to be amplifying their music offering. So looking forward to that. And I think he may even want to talk about the report last week about the Toronto police saying blacks are over policed.
Right. Yes.
I will tell people I have reached out to Beverly Bain. If you don't know that name, that was, if you did watch the presentation of those statistics by, can't remember the name, the interim chief's name, and there was a black lady who said, "We don't want an apology."
Right? We don't actually said we don't accept your apology.
We don't. That's true. We don't accept our apology.
Yes.
So Ms. Bain is actually a professor at the University of Toronto.
Okay. Nice.
So I have reached out to her a day or so. I'm going to follow up with them. I'm going to see if we can get her on. Now, probably the soonest we won't be able to get on for a bit, but I would like her to confirm so we can get her on. Also, coming up in the next few weeks, we have Kofi Hope, very incredible young man, smart guy, talking about the importance of development, blacks being involved, owning of all the development that's going on, especially land-wise. So he's coming up, and anyone you think should be on the platform, reach out to us. You know, I did not. This lady was phenomenal today. Like, we need to have her back.
Absolutely.
You know, we need to have her back. So that's it for today. With the real, I think it's one of the longer ones we've done in a while, but I think it was worthy going long on this one. So 100%. As always, I'd like to say, other things I will say. Catch me tomorrow night. State of Things with Isha K. Staggers and Jill Jones. Talk about things that are going on in America. I think one of the things we'll be talking about is the Supreme Court has basically said now in the United States it's okay for Americans to carry concealed weapons in public.
Hey, they weren't going to let that go.
Yes. And actually, one of the things that Jill Jones said is to me on offline last night, she said, well, it's open season for black people to be killed. Whole other conversation. And on Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. on Black Canada Talking, I have Janice Bartley of Foodpreneur. She's been on this platform a few times, but she has not been on Black Canada Talking. So she's going to rock. She had an incredible event last Sunday, celebrating Juneteenth and Father's Day. Had over 200 people at a craft brewery that is owned, I believe, by a black gentleman.
Oh, man, that is amazing. I love it.
So that is it. So as we say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And remember, a tree without roots is a block of wood. Have a great weekend.